Trade union federations SAFTU and Cosatu criticize each other on Workers' Day at odds over the minimum wage. SA law professor Stephen Cornelius resigns from the disciplinary tribunal of the IAAF. He says the way the sports body treats female athletes is dishonest and unethical. We'll speak to him. This is eNews at 8. I'm Sally Burdett. Good evening. Today, Workers' Day, saw rallies around the country, but not all unions are on the same page. Federation rivals Cosatu and SAFTU openly criticised each other at their separate May Day rallies in KwaZulu in Port Elizabeth today. The one-year-old Federation SAFTU has rejected the proposed minimum wage, but Cosatu agrees with President Cyril Ramaphosa, who insists it's in the best interests of workers.
It was a battle of the federations, and the once allies took swipes at each other.
Cosatu is dead. They know that they made the most horrendous mistake when they decided to please Zuma by dismantling the workers' unity, when they decided to cooperate with the project to take out all of the internal strength of the federation.
No one is going to distort history here and said this Elijah Bahai's federation, Cosatu, but iyafa, aifi, ipila more than yesterday. And this is how we're sure that this Cosatu remains for the voiceless. This Cosatu remains to attain the freedoms that workers aspire for every day.
SAFTU is a year old. It was formed last year following the expulsion of Cosatu's former Secretary General Zwelinzima Vavi and at least 400,000 National Union of Metal Workers members for bringing the federation into disrepute.
Vavi was expelled from Cosatu for the reasons that he is yet to inform society. I'm not going to be speaking on his behalf. NUMSA was expelled for violating the constitution of the federation, and Cosatu has said when NUMSA changes on her ways of becoming a general union and recruiting and cannibalizing on the existing unions of Cosatu, they will be welcome back at Cosatu. We continue to say so. So they are also on this side. It's okay. It's workers marching. It's a workers' day.
President Cyril Ramaphosa's welcome was in stark contrast to last year's heckling of then-President Jacob Zuma. It eventually led to the cancellation of the May Day rally. President Ramaphosa insists the proposed minimum wage is in the best interest of workers, despite it being rejected by SAFTU.
There are those who are saying, yes, the minimum wage should have been 15,000 rand or 12,000 rand. Yes, we want workers to get that type of wage. But at the same time, many workers in our country would have lost their jobs. We had to balance between losing millions of jobs and establishing a firm base.
The people who are defending 20 rand and 11 rand for workers in the public works program must go and defend them there. And we are here to fight it. I think that Wednesday was a demonstration that the overwhelming majority of workers in this country are rejecting poverty, slavery, wages. We're happy with that. Why must we compete with dying organizations?
SAFTU has now called on all workers to help stop the bus strike. It wants its workers, during their lunch break on Thursday, to gather at bus depots to pressurize the bosses to give in to workers' demands.
On Workers' Day, we of course have to consider the many South Africans who are battling to find work. The expanded Public Works program is designed to provide some work opportunities, but about 400 people linked to one of these programs through the city of Johannesburg say the city has broken its promise to them. To highlight their plight, they've spent several nights sleeping outside the city of Joburg head offices. And as Malungelo Boy reports, it seems the city has some difficult questions to answer.
These are some of the 400 workers who say they've not only just been left jobless, but they also have not been paid for their 3 months' work. They say they were seconded to pick it up to help in cleaning Johannesburg.
Basitshela ukuthi umsebenzi sewuphelile. Mangiyafona ngiyabuza ukuthi mawuphela kanjani umsebenzi mina ngingakaze ngibhadara. Bathi bona hayi imali yakho uzoyithola belebele bethi uzoyithola ansithi namhlanje zange azayithola.
Workers held this protest at the City of Johannesburg offices last week. They were sleeping outside. This was all in an effort to force Mayor Herman Mashaba to absorb them into the city as he had apparently promised them.
These workers are employed through Pick It Up, which is doing a job that is not of temporary nature. They're responsible for waste management in a city, and that job, is continuing. And by substituting a group of workers after every 3 months, that is counterproductive.
The city concedes an assurance was given to the workers.
Commitment that the mayor had made was to say that he will engage with national government to see to what extent we can accommodate or get the budget paid into the city's funds to accommodate people under those former or those employed under expanded public works program, how we can accommodate people on a permanent basis. Pick It Up needs to be notified of these workers who hasn't been paid and which are the subcontractors not honouring the contracts that they have with Pick It Up by not paying the workers. If that's the case, I can tell you I will personally take it up because it's unacceptable.
The workers plan on taking their plight to Gauteng Premier David Makura later in the week. Malungelo Pui, Johannesburg.
Now to a new development over the IAAF's testosterone regulations, and South African sports law expert Professor Stephen Cornelius has resigned from the International Association of Athletics Federations. This after the sports body issued its controversial announcement about testosterone regulations last week. Now Cornelius was a member of the body's disciplinary tribunal. In his resignation letter, Cornelius says he can't continue to associate himself with an organisation that insists on ostracising certain female individuals. He says the adoption of new regulations for female classification based on the same ideology that's led to some of the worst atrocities in history. Professor Cornelius believes the regulations will likely be unlawful in parts of the world. And he joins me now to talk further about this. Very strong words, Professor. You talk about a warped ideology at the IAAF. You've been there since December as part of this international tribunal of 40 international people. It's an independent body set up really to address the issues, to make sure that it's ethical what's going on. What have you seen? What tipped you over the edge to write such a strongly worded letter?
Well, the first thing that motivated me was just that I felt that I would at some stage be called upon to enforce these regulations against athletes. And I just couldn't see myself doing that if I know fundamentally that these are wrong and that I believe would be unlawful in most parts of the world.
How are they wrong? You know, the IAAF is saying we're just trying to level the playing field. We've got research that shows elevated testosterone has a clear advantage for certain female athletes in certain sports. South Africa, as a country, we're saying this is a witch hunt. How are these regulations wrong? You're a legal expert.
Well, to start off with, I think whether an athlete has an advantage or not is irrelevant. We do not say to high jumpers who are exceptionally tall that they have to stand on their knees when they jump. So if you have a natural ability, that should be your advantage. Sport is not for the average human being, because then we would all be Olympic champions. Sport is for exceptional people. The research is also flawed. There's no scientific basis for the 5 nanomole level that they keep insisting on. There's been a number of scientific papers questioning that aspect. And also just the science behind this has been questioned in academic journals. So from that point of view, they are taking decisions that they cannot justify scientifically.
Now you say you've resigned also on deep moral grounds. You're saying history will judge the IAAF and that it's the same kind of ideology that's led to some of the worst injustices and atrocities in the history of our planet. What are you saying is going on there?
Well, if you look in history, most countries have a history of drugging people and putting them in asylums simply because they are different. And this is exactly what is being done here. I mean, in South Africa, we have the history with apartheid. And if we look at all the injustices perpetrated there, and this is no different. It's the same kind of idea. You are different, therefore we do not like the fact that you are winning, and we take steps to exclude you from the sport.
Would an entire group of scientists, medical professionals and researchers be that emotional at the IAAF?
Well, it's interesting also that all the research they rely on in some way involves someone either from the IAAF or someone who used to work there. So that's for me another ethical issue. If you rely on research to base your case, it must be independent, verified research. And therefore I have also a problem with the research they rely on.
What's your position? Should it all just be left alone?
I believe if you have a natural advantage, then that is how it should be. As I said, it's the same with a high jumper being exceptionally tall or a long distance athlete being fairly small and light. That's an advantage you have, and you should be allowed to participate on that basis.
Well, thank you very much for coming in and sharing our views. That was Professor Steve Cornelius. He's a sports law expert at the University of Pretoria, and he's just resigned from the IAAF's Independent Disciplinary Tribunal, citing ethical concerns about the way the federation treats its female athletes. Interestingly, there are 2 other South Africans on that tribunal. It'll be interesting to hear their views as well. After the break, land invasion spread to another area in Gauteng. An attempted land grab in Soweto today saw landowners and land invaders come face to face. Malungelo Boy has the story.
This group of people started earmarking plots for themselves on this land. They say they are not interested in anything else but land to build their homes. The group says it's already collected names of over 600 people who need land here as a matter of urgency.
The reason why we came here, we realized that there's a land here that is unoccupied, that has been vacant for years. But we are saying to them, give us land. Even if you don't build homes for us, we will make sure that we build our own homes.
This is land invasion. Do you acknowledge that?
We do get that as the land invasion, but what we are saying is we are here for shelter, right? So what they can do for us is to give a space to stay. That's all that we want.
But Protea Glen Extension 29 homeowners say an informal settlement on their doorsteps would devalue their properties.
These people came here with their tools and saying they want to build shacks. Yes. We asked them, okay guys, we understand you saying you don't have a land to stay. Ama-toilet no watap, amanzi no watap, electricity. They told us that we're gonna get it from you guys. One of them, khona lapha ushela ukuthi adina nesport ngapha, itavern ngapha. So sizovula nizophila kamnani ngoba sizovula nama tavern khona la nizokhona ukuthi nizophuza nathi.
Eventually, law enforcement officials were able to convince those grabbing land to leave, averting possible clashes. As soon as they left, angry homeowners moved into the site, removing some of the things left behind. A community leader says he's been able to identify one of the people involved in the attempted land grab.
I know him because he's the member of the ANC in Ward 135. I'm really worried, even though sometimes I'm pointing a finger at us as leaders. To say after the conference, we were supposed to have a public meeting and say, let us not do things wrongly, because the how part of this land issue, it is not yet even discussed by both organizations that have agreed with the land issue in Parliament.
This land invasion is one of several incidents recorded in Gauteng in recent months. Premier David Makhura has often raised concerns about the matter. Malungelo Boy, Soweto.
Another 3 people have been arrested in connection with the recent violent pitch invasion at Moses Mabhida Stadium. The total number of people arrested now stands at 4. A security guard was injured and damage was estimated at more than 2 million rand when angry Kaizer Chiefs fans stormed the field. The 3 new suspects are expected to appear at the Durban Magistrates Court tomorrow on charges of public violence. Workers' Day, of course, an international event. Let's take a look at rallies around the world. In Taiwan, thousands of workers took to the streets to denounce the country's new labour policies. Protesters gathered in front of the presidential palace before setting off to march through Taipei. They want the government to scrap a new overtime pay and annual leave law. Protesters believe it favours the employer. The new law makes it legal to work for more than 7 consecutive days, but no more than 12 days in a row. Turkish police clashed with protesters who defied a ban to march to Istanbul's symbolic main square. The protesters were commemorating the deaths of 34 people during a May Day event held over 40 years ago. Taksim Square was declared off limits over security concerns. Dozens were detained. Trade unions were allowed to hold rallies elsewhere in the capital. Look at your top story this evening. Trade Union Federation SAFTU and Cosatu criticise each other on Workers' Day at odds over the minimum wage. We've got your weather up next, and then
I've been waiting for this day for like so long. I'm so excited that it's in South Africa.
Hip-hop artist Chance the Rapper rocked the Dome in Johannesburg.
Welcome to the Weather Center. Our most recent satellite pictures showing us patches of cloud that brought us isolated thunderstorms on Tuesday afternoon over the central and eastern areas. It was mostly fine over the Eastern Cape, but in the western sections, we saw a thick layer of high-level cloud moving into the northern and western Cape. And these clouds here are not going to be giving us any rain over those parts of the country tonight. Now, on Wednesday, we are going to see this cold front introducing rainy weather by mid-morning into the southwest coastline. We will also see isolated showers over the eastern areas. Then in the afternoon, more showers will develop over the northwestern, central and southeastern areas, and light rain should reach the south coast as we get into Wednesday evening. So here's a closer look at what you can expect in your province. Thundershows are forecast in the eastern areas of the northern Cape. It's going to be mostly sunny and mild for the western sections, partly cloudy with a high of 30. In Appington, we are going to see light rain over the western and southern sections of the western Cape, a high of 20 for Cape Town, the same for Worcester and around Langaban. Thundershows are forecast across much of the eastern Cape, where it's going to be warm to hot, partly cloudy and dry, however, for Port Elizabeth, peaking at 24 degrees. It's going to be mostly sunny for the KZN coastal areas with a small chance of thundershows as we go towards Newcastle. Fairly unsettled weather can be expected across much of Mpumalanga, a warm 26 for the high in Mpombela. Thundershows are also expected for much of the Limpopo province. It's going to be partly cloudy and dry, however, for Musina and around Lephalale. We could also see thundershows over the western and eastern areas of the northwest. Mahikeng gets away with partly cloudy skies, warming to 25 degrees on Wednesday afternoon. We are also going to see fairly unsettled weather over the western areas of the Free State, Bloemfontein and Forest Smith, both peaking at 24 degrees. Gauteng could also see thundery showers with a warm 25 forecast for the high in Pretoria. Now on Thursday, we should see mostly sunny skies over western South Africa. Thunderstorms over the eastern areas, light rain for parts of the south and the east coast. Then on Friday, it's going to be mostly sunny for much of the country.
And finally, American hip-hop artist Chance the Rapper rocked the Ticket Pro Dome in Johannesburg last night. Now, if you don't know who he is, probably in my age group. His real name is Chancellor Jonathan Bennett. He's 25. He comes from Chicago. He's worked with the likes of Kanye West and Pharrell Williams, and he has over 7 million followers on Twitter alone. He's in South Africa for the Castle Light Unlocks music experience. Our reporter Ditiro Slepe was there.
You don't want zero problems, big fella. Yup. If one more label try to stop me, it's gonna be some dreadhead in lobby.
Chance the Rapper's first performance in South Africa was lapped up by around 10,000 fans.
I've been waiting for this day for like so long. I'm so excited excited that he's in South Africa.
Yo, champs, welcome to SA!
Opening for chants were local artists Nadi Nakai and Shane Eagle.
The main thing that I get inspired by him is his involvement on the ground. You know what I mean? Like, he's involved in college funds. He's involved in getting people out of the hoods. Like, he didn't blow up and decide, I don't care about anybody else.
Thank you so much for coming out to South Africa. It was such an awesome show. You truly are an inspiration.
And indeed, the fans felt blessed. Slepe, Johannesburg.
Let's recap your top stories this evening. Trade Union Federation SAFTU and Cosatu criticize each other on Workers' Day, at odds over the minimum wage. SA law professor Stephen Cornelius resigns from the disciplinary tribunal of the IAAF. He says the way the sports body treats female athletes over testosterone levels is dishonest and unethical. And that's your news. Take care. Good night.